de hacer todo el trabajo.
And thank you to the organization for accepting our offer to come here. There are many people who were not accepted to come in, and we hope you enjoy our speech. Jorge and I have spent a lot of time trying to ensure that it's as enjoyable as possible. We want to talk about augmented reality and also its connection to security.
Lo primero de todo, ¿quiénes somos? Mi compañero Jorge Cuadrado,
my colleague Jorge Cuadrado.
de BBVA Next Technologies, al igual que
We
yo,
are from
trabajamos en el área
BBVA
de
Next
seguridad.
Technologies and work in the security section.
Para la empresa y hacemos cosillas de investigación
And also in terms of
que puede aportar la realidad aumentada
to see what virtual reality could do within our company.
Miguel Hernández, ya ha estado por la mañana.
So I'm Miguel Hernández, I was here for this morning,
estaremos por aquí ya que
and we
participamos
work
ambos
together in this
hackathon, así que
field,
si
and
tenéis
we'll
alguna
be
duda,
involved in the hackathon later on as well, so you can come and ask us any questions if you have
¿De
any.
qué va a ir la charla? No
So
necesitas
what will
conocimientos
this
técnicos
speech be
de
about?
realidad aumentada.
You do not need technical knowledge of augmented reality. We're going to talk about it a little bit and how it has evolved over the years, and the uses that it's put to, and its relationship to security.
En realidad aumentada. Con casos que ya han existido, trabajos que hayan hecho y las propuestas que hacemos nosotros de cómo implementar con lo que sería realidad aumentada segura, o casos donde nos podría servir la realidad aumentada para mejorar la seguridad de nuestras organizaciones. Que toda la parte práctica la llevará Jorge, yo os contaré un poquito la parte teórica. Y si tenéis ordenador y lo podéis ir siguiendo, es mucho mejor porque va a haber mucha parte práctica, va a estar con el ordenador enseñándoos el código, haciendo pruebas con la cámara, etcétera, pero lo podéis seguir haciendo vosotros si sabéis del ordenador. Y os enseñamos unas talks que están todos subidos a GitHub, ya lo veréis, y un poco unas propuestas que os ponemos para ver cómo podéis ayudarnos, ¿no? Cómo podemos mejorar o qué otras ideas nos hemos ocurrido nosotros y podíamos realizar. Visto todo esto, me tengo que acordar de apuntar ahí. Voy a empezar con lo que sería realidad aumentada.
So let's talk a little bit about the theory of augmented reality.
¿Qué es realidad aumentada?
What is
Básicamente es todas las tecnologías que están
Basically,
dándote
it's
más información de lo
all
que la realidad te ofrece. ¿Vale? Tú necesitas un dispositivo tecnológico que te ofrezca inclusión de información. ¿Vale? Puede ser de cualquier tipo y aunque no lo creéis ya lleva tiempo
actually this has been
entre
up and running for quite some
apareció por
time now. It existed over 100 years ago for the first time. As you can see, the device was there quite large, and the capacity was much more limited, but it existed for the first time in 1901. They would introduce more information using images in order to improve what you were looking at in terms of visibility for the information. So it's used in many different areas. How has this evolved over time? Obviously, many years ago, the devices were much larger and they were used in university for education, and it wasn't available in our homes. And it was used a lot in medicine, but a lot more in the field of universities. In the 80s, things improved quite a lot in terms of the size of the devices. They were a lot smaller, and the goggles were also a little simpler, but they did require a large processor, and this was complicated. From the year 2000 on, there were very interesting applications, such as the typical aviation games, where you have the camera and you have the horizon and the height and so on. It seems very simple, but at the time it was a big step forward.
Hasta que no te das cuenta de estas cosas, pues antes cómo lo debían hacer. O las gafas ya empezaron a ser más pequeñas. Y todo este tema de llevarlo a lo que sea el público general es lo que más dinero se invierte, ¿no? Las potencias más grandes como Google son las que están sacando las HoloLens, gafas mucho más ergonómicas, pero básicamente lo que intentan es que no te moleste lo menos posible y tú puedas ver esa información agregada para mejorar, ¿no? la visibilidad. Y aparecieron empresas también que lo vieron muy interesante
And there have also
ya que,
been a
por
number
ejemplo,
of
IKEA, tú
companies
cuando
that
tienen un
have
problema de las
realized
devoluciones, ¿no? Siempre que te compras
I've
algo,
seen the
pues
use
si no te
of
gusta cómo
augmented
queda, lo tienes que
reality.
devolver y
For
eso pues un
example,
coste.
IKEA, if
Pues
they
IKEA
have
lo que
an
dice
image
es, yo te ofrezco
of
la
a
posibilidad de que
seat
lo pongas en tu casa con realidad
lounge.
aumentada
If you
y te
don't like it, you
evites
can take
ese
it back,
compra y
and
devolución.
you
Entonces,
avoid that
tú puedes
process of
ver ya
having
cómo va a
to go
quedar,
to the shop,
reduciendo
purchase
mucho el coste
something, and then
de
returning it, and
devoluciones.
that
Pues es un caso
reduces
claro
the cost of
de
returns
esta
quite
realidad aumentada
significantly.
sin ningún problema
Using
de seguridad ni
augmented
nada. Esto
reality,
sería
you
en
can use
general.
this without any
Y a partir
security
de esto, ¿cómo
issues
explotó realmente?
whatsoever.
Cuando la gente empezó a hablar de
And
realidad
so when
aumentada.
did people
Fue con el
begin to
caso
talk
de
about augmented reality?
Pokémon, ¿vale?
Let's talk about the
Empieza así.
case
Es
of
un poquito largo el
Pokemon.
vídeo y no lo cortaremos a mitad. El vídeo es de 2015, que parece...
This video is from
que es de ayer.
2015.
Entiendo que casi todo el mundo conoce el mundo de Pokémon Go, ha ido evolucionando, ha habido
Many of
más
you know the
versiones,
Pokemon Go world.
que
It's
lograron algo
evolved over
importante que
time,
era sacarte de casa.
but they achieved something that was
Usaban
very important,
simplemente
was
la
getting
posición
people out
GPS
of their houses
para aumentarte
using a
la...
GPS to
aplicar
increase
esta realidad aumentada dentro de la
that
posición
augmented
GPS. Básicamente
reality
tu pantalla aparecía
to be
Pokémon
able to
en la
use that,
parte
and you had the Pokemon on your
aleatoria de
screen,
donde estabas.
depending on where you were situated.
No sé si alguno se propuso el problema de privacidad que tenía esto.
I don't know if
Yo creo que
anybody
quedó
thought about the privacy
bastante
element
claro con
of
este ejemplo.
this.
Si lo pasé así. El problema de privacidad que tenía esto es que básicamente
The
tú sabías dónde estabas en cada
privacy
momento, al igual
issue
que con el
was
GPS,
knowing
pero
where
aquí
anybody
más
was at any
masivamente.
given
¿Vale?
time.
Entonces era un poco... Veremos ese caso, que
We'll
cómo
have a look
se
at
puede
this
abordar el tema
particular
de
case and
privacidad.
how we can deal with that case,
Esto era de
the issue of
2015, de
privacy.
Niantic, fue como un easter egg, una broma que
This
hicieron entre ellos
was
para
in
el aniversario, lo propusieron y de
2015, and it
repente
was a
vieron
kind
que
of a
esto tenía
joke that
futuro.
they
Y a
did
partir
had them between themselves, and a lot of companies realized that a lot of people were using this, and this was the case that recently came up, and we'll have a look at this now, because actually you can collaborate now. That's quite interesting. I'm sure you're familiar with Minecraft. You can do whatever you want with this video game. The augmented reality is absolutely wonderful, and it's about collaboration, and you can use the same two users in the same scenario, and you can play without having to leave your home. You can do different tests and so on. This just came out quite recently.
To your creativity with Minecraft Earth.
Una pena porque Early Access, pero no podemos jugarlo. Pero bueno, para que veáis un poco cómo ha ido evolucionando, ¿no?
So this is just an idea of how things have evolved. There are still video games there as an essential part of augmented reality, and it's also present in other areas, but the point is that things are improving significantly. Many organizations use it to give more visibility to events.
Y te aparecía en el estadio y ahí podías ver un
a
dragón,
dragon at the end of this case in the stadium,
un león de fuego.
Or
Entonces,
in the
realmente en las
bottom
redes,
left you can see a lion in flames.
A llegar a más gente.
And these are different techniques used to reach more people. It's used by companies
ya empieza a aparecer un poquito más que no solamente Pokémon Go,
reach a greater number of people, and it's not only used by Pokemon Go, but in other places. What other examples do we have?
Que es AR y cómo funciona en general, pero la tecnología que hay detrás, pues casi siempre es
the
JavaScript.
technology behind
Y nosotros vamos a utilizar
this is almost always 3Js.
pero existen otras para que no
os
cerréis a una tecnología, que puedes elegir la que quieras, puedes usar la de Google, puedes usar se utiliza también con CJS, hay toolkits, una dedicada para Android, o sea, son repositorios abiertos, no hay ningún problema en que podéis desarrollar de manera open source y colaborativa. Pero nosotros nos centraremos en la primera de todas, ¿vale?
We're going to concentrate on the first of all of these.
¿Qué aplicaciones? Hemos visto videojuegos, hemos visto que es para impacto social, pero ya hay casos que no me había dado cuenta que en mi día a día los estoy viendo. A la hora de aparcar, el típico, las líneas que aparecen han sido algo nuevo con las cámaras traseras de los coches y realmente es realidad aumentada, ¿no?
And what we have in place is actually augmented reality. It's giving you information as you're parking with the lines so that you know when you have to turn.
La parte sonora también sería una
and there's also a sound, a bleeping sound that goes along with what you're seeing. And perhaps people don't realize this is actually augmented reality.
Temas de tiempo, porque cada vez
and there are also cases in terms of the
weather, because
it's a little bit more interesting than just watching the TV, and also in sports applications, so you can know the distance between one cyclist and another, for example, in football.
Muchas veces me preguntaban si cuando ponías la televisión tienes un partido, la publicidad que aparecía.
In fact, I would often ask myself if matches, when you're watching them on TV, if the advertising that they put in there was actually augmented reality, or if it was actually physically there on the field.
También existen empresas, han visto que hay negocio, han empezado a meter.
There are also many companies that are investing a lot of money in this field and have seen that maybe a niche of the market that needs to be looked into. Perhaps you don't know what you want to work in the future. Perhaps you could work with us, and there are different projects for automation, for example, knowing where to put the furniture in your home, in consultancy, and also in games and in services. So there is an industry, there are many different openings, and protection of health and safety issues. So the world, I would say, is kind of moving towards this field. An important point is the actual difference between augmented reality and virtual reality. Sometimes you think you're seeing augmented reality, but it's actually virtual reality.
Que el ser humano pues tiene problemas de mareos y tal, porque claro, no entiende muy bien dónde está.
Sometimes people get a little bit dizzy and they're not able, they get disoriented, and so
la realidad aumentada no
this has to be taken into account. In augmented reality, you don't need very powerful lenses, and you can even use it with your mobile phone.
Y es bastante costoso. Lo más novedoso que he visto yo, que fue hace poquito que apareció, no sé si lo conocéis, es este
recently something new came up. I don't know if you've seen this video game before. You put some gloves on and you put them on each finger, and this enables you to be able to touch things, to pick things up, to get involved in the game. So I don't know in reality how this coordinates with the mind, but I would say this is the most recent thing in virtual augmented reality.
No es tan fácil tenerlo en tu casa para pocos juegos que hay. Que también hay casos de uso
there are also cases of use that are not only used for in companies, but they can be used in generally in different campaigns. They have been used, for example, in the augmented reality billboard campaign to show the power of blood donations. With these systems, it enables you to reach difficult publics and difficult products, and you can help people to understand and to develop and to improve their level of life.
Para las campañas suele venir muy bien, da bastante más impacto que verlo. Y lo que sería todo esto es la introducción, tampoco quería explayarme más. La gracia de esto no es cómo puedo aplicar.
And I don't want to go on too much, but there's also the augmented reality in security. That's what we're getting to here.
Te estás exponiendo, saben dónde cada vez que cojas un Pokémon, eso queda registrado.
So each time you work with a Pokemon, you play with a Pokemon, that gets recorded there. So there are some issues that need to be developed and worked on in the field of augmented reality.
Lo primero, hay un caso claro que no tiene tanto que ver con
There is one clear case, and that's the issue of copies of these apps. So when things go wrong and become very famous, there are many attackers who try to fool the user. And with Pokemon Go, there were many similar applications, and people would download them not without realizing that they were copies. And this could damage your phone. And there was also the issue of malware. So you have to be careful with what you're downloading, ensuring that's from the official pages. This has nothing to do with augmented reality, but it's true that there are some issues depending on the applications.
In
terms of security, there are interesting lines of work. Before information gets to augmented reality, there are, in the first case, everything that is recorded on the camera is recorded, and it can be sent to a server and it's being monitored. So it is live logging. So everything that goes on the computer is being registered. It depends what you're recording, or it depends what your camera is looking at AR, but in actual fact you're using a screen that shouldn't be reading, that you shouldn't be recording that register.
Del Walmart sí pasa algo parecido, ¿no? Que lo que van son más a modelos de privacidad basados en lo que si hay man in the middle dentro de
based on the man in the middle
estás procesando bien la caracterización, me están intentando
engañar y
hay los enlaces son trabajos bastante interesantes.
And these are interesting lines of work that have come up over the last few years, and this is a good basis for growing, and this is before we actually get to the app itself. When we go to the app, we also can have some issues, and one of the examples that commonly given is that I'm in my car, and there are apps that are telling me that I'm too close to another car, and there's an alert or an indication. You could get involved in this, but don't tell me at this distance, but at this different distance, so that the car advises you at a different time. So you don't brake in time and you have an accident. So the information that comes out from the app has to be necessarily the information that you need, because there can be physical consequences, especially when you're working with vehicles. So careful with the signals and so on. It's similar to computer vision that can give you the wrong information with the signals. So in terms of privacy, this is key in all of this work, because you're exposed, the person who's using the application is exposed to when you're reading, as was the case with Pokemon Go. It's clear that the information of when you're using each Pokemon or reading each Pokemon was recorded. Or, for example, you want to put an element in augmented reality and somebody could modify that. I've given you all the references here of all these pieces of work, and I'm sure you'll have the slides and you'll be able to have a look at this, and I think it's quite interesting.
Muy chulos, porque a la hora de esconder información yo podría utilizarlo para hacer esta grafía. Por ejemplo, yo puedo esconder información en la propia información y que no se pueda saber hasta que no tenga la manera de sacarla. Lo que haces es, de alguna manera, puedes cifrarlo, puedes esconderla en el propio AR y así puedes tirar información, puedes hacer un cover channel, lo que se apetece. Entonces hay trabajos también sobre esto, de cómo esconder esconder información en realidad aumentada. ¿Qué más podemos hacer? Esto es muy interesante porque en algunos países ya sí, pues como os decía, pues tienes el juego, tienes alguna manera de que alguna compañía quiera realmente hacer impacto con su evento, y hay personas que se dedican, ¿no?, a intentar hacer vandalismo sobre ello. Y no sé cómo está tipificada la ley que hagan vandalismo sobre un monumento, pero es complicado dónde llega el límite, ¿no? Y dónde puedes decir, pues a este color ponerle eso. Pero lo gracioso de esto es que hay librerías open source para hacer grafitis en componentes AR. O sea, tú puedes decir, vale, yo me lo bajo y lo puedo hacer yo en mi casa tranquilamente, no necesito tener mucho conocimiento, y está libre y lo podéis usar. Es un caso bastante complicado de solucionar, ya que tú, ¿quién puede proteger a cada monumento de cada sitio para que no llegue alguien, monte el marcador para que lo pueda ver cualquier persona con R, como no proteger los marcadores? Ya miras tú cómo vas a proteger estas cosas. Por ahora en España no ha habido muchos casos, pero bueno, es algo que no sabemos muy bien cómo solucionar. Sí. ¿Qué otros problemas puede haber? Sobre todo, no con los casos estos de que tú vas por la calle y vas viendo mensajes, etcétera. ¿Cómo controlas que alguien no te meta spam masivo en tu aplicación, ¿no? En que alguien diga, vale, yo sé que aquí va a haber personas jugando lo que sea, o trabajando con maquinaria, lo que sea, y puedo meterle allí todo el contenido que yo quiera, ¿no? Spamear. Es muy complicado de controlar porque no hay sistemas de autenticación en AR, de decir, oye, yo quiero que solo salga mi contenido. O solder surfing, es otro caso también de que yo, por ejemplo, lo puedo ver en mi móvil y otras personas no, pues si lo tengo detrás me lo va a ver, como me protejo contra eso. Al igual que el tema del vandalismo, es que esto ya va más a que yo publico algo en red aumentada y alguien me lo pueda modificar. Ya no poner encima de algo real, sino algo que ha sido utilizado en red aumentada, el poder editarlo. En estos casos son ya más complejos y que no tienen tanta solución. Lo que más se ha visto, lo que pasa es que depende desde HoloLens, de las que comprar, es esta librería que lo que habla es de privacidad y seguridad en el toolkit de desarrollo. Hasta ahora todos los toolkits que hemos enseñado al principio, sobre todo, no te lo proporcionan. Lo único que haces es desarrollas, liberas los marcadores, te programas el modelo que quieres que aparezca en tu dispositivo, pero no habla en ningún momento de que solo pueda haber una persona, de que esté seguro de que alguien pueda modificar y alguien no, y en estos casos sí que ya empiezan a ver que puede ser un problema. Nosotros si desarrollamos para la empresa, que una empresa quiere que tenga un producto que no quiere que nadie toque, pues ahí ya empieza a haber algunos soluciones. Lo que os digo que no es del todo libre porque ya dependes de Microsoft. Entonces, un poco el problema. Y un poco las propuestas que hemos pensado, que vamos a ver en la parte práctica, es la siguiente, ¿no? Vemos que hay un problema en que yo quiero mostrar algo, pero no quiero que lo vea todo el mundo. ¿Cómo puedo hacer eso? ¿Puedo meter algún tipo de cifrado en esa información? ¿Es necesario que haya un equipo que yo controle para poder leer esos marcadores? ¿Puedo cerciorarme de que un documento de AR no está modificado? ¿No ha habido alguien que haya puesto un marcador encima para engañarme y que yo luego cuando lo voy a leer modifique el estado de mi dispositivo? Pues todo esto es lo que vamos a intentar ir viendo, ¿no? Con algunos ejemplos, las cosas vamos a ver, aunque iremos poco a poco, en ver con unos pequeños ejemplos cómo podemos solucionar estas cosas. Ya os digo que hay cosas que son más alcanzables, otras no, pero creo que al menos las primeras sí que las vamos a poder ver. Y bueno, sin más, compañero Jorge.
Bueno, pues una vez que hemos contado un poquillo todo este contexto más teórico, vamos a pasar a la parte práctica. Lo que vamos a hacer es, vamos a contextualizar primero la tecnología, os voy a explicar un poco cómo funciona, en detalle, cuáles son las dinámicas que se suelen seguir con este tipo de tecnologías, y vamos a ir sobre el mismo ejemplo poco a poco, evolucionándolo hasta hacer algo un poco más complicado, ¿vale? Entonces vamos a ir de 0 a 100, pero bueno, hasta donde lleguemos. Entonces, la librería que vamos a usar se llama RJS. Esta librería es una librería que nos permite, mediante JavaScript, modelar entornos de realidad aumentada. A la hora de manejarla, Esta librería lo que hace es sobre FreeJS y a su vez sobre A-Frame, nos va a permitir de una forma muy sencilla en el navegador poder crear nuestra propia aplicación de realidad aumentada. Esto tiene bastantes puntos positivos en el sentido de que normalmente las librerías están planteadas para que tú te desarrolles una aplicación en Android o en un entorno móvil. Sin embargo, al estar ahora haciéndolo con tecnologías web, esto nos va a permitir ejecutar esta misma aplicación en nuestro teléfono o en nuestro ordenador. Y a la hora de hacer la aplicación vamos a jugar mucho con eso, porque normalmente necesitaríamos a lo mejor un marcador físico para poder nosotros colocar ese objeto de realidad aumentada en la realidad. Entonces, gracias a esto lo que vamos a hacer es vamos a usar la cámara del portátil en vez de usar la cámara del móvil, que es la que normalmente usaríamos, y nos va a permitir de una forma rápida y fluida el ir haciendo las pruebas y el ir haciendo un poquito, el viendo los cambios según hagamos el código. Bueno, como os he comentado, aquí lo que vamos a hacer es vamos a usar estas dos tecnologías, que son las que encima nos van a encima tienen ARJS y se basa en marcadores, ¿vale? Esto, los marcadores de AR lo que nos van a permitir es colocar estas entidades de realidad aumentada en la realidad. Porque al final la realidad aumentada simplemente nos sirve para, de una forma visual, mostrar contenido, pero no vamos a procesar datos con ella. Los datos, los cifrados o cualquier otra cosa lo vamos a hacer de una forma tradicional, con un modelo cliente-servidor. Aquí lo único que hacemos con AR es recibir los datos y mostrarlos en lo que es la realidad. Pero ¿cómo sabe nuestra aplicación dónde los va a mostrar? Aquí hay diferentes aproximaciones. La librería que nosotros usamos usa marcadores, ¿vale? En este caso, los más conocidos pues son Giro, pero tenemos también, por ejemplo, los patrones, tenemos códigos QR o tenemos códigos de barras. Hay incluso otras librerías que te permitirían usar imágenes como marcadores. Entonces, lo que van a hacer estos códigos simplemente es decirle, quiero que me coloques aquí esta imagen. La librería lo va a entender y va a dibujarnos lo que nosotros le pidamos. Sin embargo, como comentaba antes Miguel, tenemos también el caso de Pokémon Go. El Pokémon Go lo que está haciendo es, nos está colocando estos elementos, que son los Pokémon, mediante coordenadas GPS. Esto es, en vez de decirle a la aplicación, quiero que cuando tú reconozcas este elemento me dibujes encima un objeto de realidad aumentada, es, quiero que cuando tú grabes en esta posición geográfica, quiero que en este punto exacto me coloques este elemento. Nosotros no vamos a usarlo, sin embargo, la librería que usamos sí que nos permite hacer esto, lo cual es bastante interesante. Vamos a ver un poquito el tema de las pruebas de concepto. Entonces, vamos a empezar por un hola mundo, ¿vale? Vamos a ir a lo más sencillito, lo que vamos a intentar hacer es dibujar un cubo. Para este taller tenemos un repositorio de GitHub liberado. Entonces, vamos a usar código que va a estar en este repositorio. Así vamos a ganar en velocidad y si queréis seguirlo mientras lo voy explicando, vais a poder hacerlo. Para ello, para esta primera prueba y probablemente para las dos también, para las dos siguientes, vamos a usar por un lado GitHub, por otro lado vamos a usar esta librería de realidad aumentada y vamos a usar también Netlify. GitHub es un servicio que nos va a permitir alojar nuestro código y alojar las versiones de nuestro código de forma online. Y Netlify lo que va a hacer es, va a coger ese código y va a mostrárnoslo en una página web. Esto no va a ser completamente necesario porque también vamos a poder hacerlo desde terminal, pero bueno, queremos enseñaros todo el ciclo desde que veáis la página web hasta que la podáis liberar en Internet y podáis usarla también desde el propio teléfono. A la hora de un proyecto con esta librería, es prácticamente igual que una página web. Vamos a tener un documento HTML en el que almacenemos el contenido. Vamos a tener scripts de JavaScript en el que modelemos cómo se comporta nuestra aplicación y vamos a tener estilos CSS para poder colocar ese contenido de una forma visual. Entonces, para ir empezando, cuando queramos hacer una aplicación con ARJS, vamos a tener que incluir en nuestro fichero estas dos librerías que son las de AR. Entonces, vamos a ir a nuestro código. ¿Vale? Y lo que vamos a hacer es, si os habéis descargado el repositorio, tendréis 3 carpetas dentro de la carpeta ejercicios, en la que vais a encontrar la prueba de concepto 0, que es la que vamos a hacer ahora, la prueba de concepto 1, que es la que haremos después, y la prueba de concepto 2, en la que haremos marcas de agua para documentos. Entonces, en esta primera prueba de concepto tenemos la solución y el ejercicio. Vamos a empezar por el ejercicio, ¿vale? Vamos aquí y lo que tenemos es el índice de nuestra aplicación ya preparado. Tenemos aquí los comentarios donde nos van a indicar dónde debemos de ir colocando esas líneas de código. Entonces, como hemos dicho, lo primero que tenemos que hacer es incluir estas dos líneas de código. Las tenéis dentro del README en el ejercicio, entonces podéis copiarlas de ahí también directamente sin tardar tanto. Aquí está el repositorio, vamos a ejercicios. La prueba inicial, aquí tenemos las líneas de código, ¿vale? ¿Vale? Entonces, lo primero que vamos a hacer, como hemos dicho, esto es como una aplicación web de toda la vida. Aquí tenemos el doctype, tenemos el HTML, tenemos el head y tenemos el body. Pues dentro del head lo que vamos a hacer es incluir estas librerías. Vale. Por otro lado, esto no es necesario, pero en estas pruebas de concepto hemos querido también incluiros unos estilos para que se vea un poquito más estético y más visual. Ahora lo veréis, pero lo vamos a añadir después, vamos a hacer también el cambio, para que veáis cómo es, con estilos y sin estilos, la misma aplicación. Entonces, en una aplicación de realidad aumentada, con esta librería, tenemos varios tags que se explican aquí. Cuando vayamos a modelar una aplicación de realidad aumentada con esta librería, lo que vamos a tener va a ser ciertos tags de HTML que nos proporciona la librería y que los podemos usar de forma muy sencilla para crear la aplicación. El primero que tenemos es el de Scene. Con este lo que vamos a hacer es modelar el escenario en el que vamos a colocar dentro de la realidad nuestros objetos. Tenemos los assets, que van a ser imágenes, vídeos, música, en general, contenido multimedia que queramos cargar en esa aplicación de realidad aumentada para usarlo posteriormente. Y que, por ejemplo, cuando nosotros estemos enfocando a un marcador, que como hemos dicho es lo que se usa para saber dónde posicionar ese elemento en realidad aumentada, pues en vez de ponernos un cubo, pues nos va a poner la imagen que nosotros decidamos. Por otro lado es el marcador, como comentaba. Es lo que se va a usar para posicionar los elementos en nuestra aplicación. Vamos a usar siempre el marcador giro en esta prueba de concepto porque es el más estándar y es así, pues usamos un solo marcador. Y por otro lado está la cámara. Lo que vamos a hacer es modelar una cámara que va a ser el ángulo de visión que nosotros tenemos respecto a ese escenario que hemos creado. Porque no es lo mismo en este tipo de objetos de realidad aumentada verlos por delante que por detrás, ya que son objetos en 3 dimensiones. Entonces, hemos importado las librerías. Ahora lo que vamos a hacer es crear nuestra aplicación. Como hemos dicho, tenemos el HTML y tenemos el head. En el head vamos a tener los 2 scripts que ya hemos importado y vamos a tener nuestros propios scripts si queremos hacer cosas a mayores, que simplemente posicionar elementos. Y dentro de lo que es el body de nuestra aplicación que es una aplicación web, vamos a tener la escena, vamos a tener la cámara, vamos a tener el marcador y vamos a tener los dibujos o las multimedias que queramos añadir a nuestra aplicación. Entonces, si vemos más en detalle el body, vamos a tener por un lado la escena, como se ve aquí. Esto va a tener unas opciones de configuración, en el repositorio están ya puestas, pero la más importante es la de ARJS, que marca que esta es una escena de ARJS y no de A-Frame, que es la librería que está por debajo. Dentro vamos a tener el marcador y la cámara.
And
Entonces,
we will have the
si
marker
quitamos
and the
estos
camera.
cuadros blancos y desvelamos el código,
So if we
vamos a ver esto,
get
¿vale?
rid of
Tenemos el
these,
marcador y dentro de
boxes and we
este
see the
elemento del
code,
marcador
then you will see
vamos a
very
poner
clearly
las
that we
cosas
have
que
the
nosotros
marker,
queremos que se
and
visualicen
within these
cuando la cámara
markers,
vea este
we're going
marcador.
to write what we
En este
want
caso, para
to
esta
see
primera prueba de
when the
concepto, lo que
camera
vamos a hacer
sees
es poner un
that
cubo
marker. So in this case, we're going
que
to
directamente
use
lo podemos crear con
cube,
esta
as I was
librería sin
saying. We can
necesidad de usar
create it with this
JavaScript
library without having
y vamos a
to
hacer que
use
ese cubo gire.
JavaScript. And we're going to make that cube
Y luego,
turn.
pues finalmente, que no se nos olvide el hecho de
And
poner la
of course,
cámara.
we
Si
don't
no
have to
ponemos la
forget
cámara,
the camera, because
no
if we
va a
don't
funcionar.
add the camera, then it's not going to work.
Entonces, como os he dicho, aquí tenemos en el repositorio el código.
So as I was saying, we have the code on the
Entonces,
repository.
dentro del body
Within
vamos a añadir
the body, we're
nuestra
going
escena.
to add our scene.
Vamos a tener un marcador.
Then we will have a marker.
Y dentro del marcador tenemos que definir
And
nuestro
within
cubo.
that marker, we have to define our
Entonces,
cube.
el elemento que se usa para
So
esto
the
dentro de A-Frame
element
se llama
we use
A-Box.
for this in A-Frame is called a
Lo
box.
que nos va a crear es una caja
And
que, como podéis ver,
it will create a
va a
box,
tener un
as
color
the name
rojo,
states.
va a tener estas
It's going to be
dimensiones
red, as you can see
y
there,
le vamos
rojo.
a poner una
It's
animación.
going to have these
Esta
dimensions here that
animación
we can
va a
see,
tener
and it's going to
ciertas
have an
propiedades
animation
en los
with,
que en
certain
bucle
features
va a seguir
that,
girando en función
will
a estas
make
posiciones
it
que son de
keep
360
turning
grados.
non-stop in these different positions, which is 360
Y
degrees.
finalmente vamos a añadir la cámara para
And
que esto
finally,
funcione.
we're going
¿Vale?
to add the
Entonces,
camera to
tenemos
make
aquí la
this
cámara
work. So we add the camera here,
y guardamos.
and then we save.
Para ejecutar esto vamos a tener varias
In order
opciones,
to
¿vale?
execute
Ahora
this,
mismo yo
we
lo
will
voy a
have
ejecutar
different
desde mi
options.
ordenador,
I'm going to
pero los
execute
siguientes
from my
pasos lo que os voy a enseñar
computer
es
now, but
cómo
in the next steps,
publicar
I'm
esta
going to
aplicación en
show you
internet y que
how
la
to
podáis usar desde el
publish
móvil o
this
desde donde
application
sea.
on the internet, so you can use it from your phone
Entonces,
or
tengo
from
aquí
wherever you want.
¿Vale? Tenemos aquí esto. Dentro tenemos los
So we've
ejercicios
got
y la
this,
solución.
and the
Vamos a
exercises and the
ejercicios,
solution. We go on to exercises.
¿vale? Y como hemos dicho, aquí lo que
And
tenemos
as we were
es
saying,
el índice, los
we have
estilos
the index,
y
the
estáticos,
styles,
que son
and the
las
statics,
imágenes que
which
vayamos a
is
utilizar.
the pictures that we're going to use.
No tenemos JavaScript porque, como
We
he
don't
dicho, en
have
esta
JavaScript, as I
primera
was
prueba no
saying,
va a ser
because we're
necesario.
not going to use it
Lo
for
que vamos
this
a hacer
first
para
test.
ejecutarlo, pues vamos a
What
crear
we're
un
going to
servidor
do
en
to
local con
execute
Python.
it is to create a local server with Python. So we use Python less 7, we use HTTPS 7, and we open it on the 8080 port. So we have this here, and if we go in here, as you can see, we see our application. This is our first application in augmented reality. But as I was saying, right now this is just a camera. It's looking for a place to position those elements, because right now it doesn't know where, it cannot distinguish. I have prepared here on my phone a marker, and as you can see, when I put it in front of the camera, yeah, sometimes with the light it doesn't work that well, but no, yeah, it does work regardless of the light, you can see. So we have a marker here, and what the marker is telling our camera is position this cube on this point. And because we said on the animation that we want the cube to be positioned in this way and for it to keep turning, well, that's what it's doing. As you can see, this is a 3D object, so if I turn my object, then the cube is going to turn because it's not the same perspective. So this is the first conceptual test. This is without styles or anything, as I was saying, without aesthetics at all. What we're going to do in order to add those, do you remember that line I told you that we were not going to use? Yeah, we're going to add it now. We go back to the repository, and we add the styles here. We reload the page, and this is just so you can see how the appearance of our application changes just with this line. And now, if my phone decides to work, see, it's a tiny bit different. You can see it a bit better now, and then within this application we will be able to add additional content, for example, the instructions.
You have the hashtag there, especially if those of you who are watching us on streaming, in case you want to ask questions. This is very basic, and the next steps are going to be a bit more complicated. So you've got the hashtag here. If you ask any questions, I will be looking at it so that we can answer your questions very quickly. Instead, you cannot see it. It's hashtag CyberCamp Mari Morena. It's CyberCamp 19, Mari Morena.
Aquí tenemos esta primera prueba. Iremos poquito a poco, iremos haciendo un poquillo de tiempo por si nos queréis seguir ahora en vivo.
We'll go slowly, little by little, in case you don't want to follow us live. We'll explain it little by little. If you'd like to access this right now, you can't because it's on my computer. So I just want to explain how you can use services that are available to everybody. You can do this augmented reality online, and everybody can access this. So we'll go back to the PowerPoint.
Bueno, por supuesto.
We're using Git, so we're going to put it on GitHub. You have two options. You can do a fork from our repository. If you do that, you need the code, or you can set up your own concept test, add all the changes, and then we'll put that in the repository. We have this in GitHub. We have our code there. And we can synchronize this now with Netify. We have the GitHub repository. So let's create an account here on this service. It's Netlify. And this service allows us to use GitHub or other similar repositories and synchronize the repository with this service. And this lifts up our web page automatically. So if you would like to create an account, once you've done that, you just have to click on this button. Here's our Mari Morena account. You can't see it too well, but let's have a look a little bit closer. So we'll create a new site. We could use also Bitbucket. I'm going to be asked for authentication, and we've already synchronized these repositories, so we have to open this up in order to place it here and open up into our account. Go into our account and select the repository that we're interested in. It's CyberCamp 2019, security in augmented reality. And here we see our repository here. Let's go inside. And it's just a question of following the steps. And now we've already set up our repository. Let's change the name in case you'd like to do some tests. So now if you go into marimorena.com, then you'll have the repository, and we can navigate till we get there. Let's find out where it is. So it'll be in exercises. So it'll be concept test 0. And in our case, we're going to go here to the solution. And as you can see, we've got this up here on the internet. We've had some permission to activate the camera, and now that's already been set up. So now if you go to Marimorena, netlify.com exercises, and in the first project solution, then you'll come into this webpage because it's a public one. You'll need this turning code that you can find on the internet. If you put gyro code, they are available there if you want to do the tests. This would be our first project. So very quickly, we've been able to create an augmented reality application. So just with this cube turning around. So this is what I was talking about earlier on, about how to create this web page. And this is what you would be able to see. Here we did a test with a piece of paper and a blue cube. So the examples that we have seen, we can see through them that they have focused very much on free time and games. And the examples that Miguel was talking about also for car parking. But the proposal that we've made with regards to this workshop is more about trying to do something a little bit different with this technology. It's very visual and has a great impact, but we could use it perhaps for cybersecurity. Take this technology to cybersecurity. We're going to the physical element and take it to the people and use it in cybersecurity, make it a little bit easier to use. It was a bit of a crazy idea, but we've been able to do something with it, and that we've got a number of examples in which augmented reality can actually help us in terms of security. The first and most simple one that we thought of is something that we've all seen in offices, in schools, in public spaces. We're talking about the Wi-Fi code. So, hello, this is our Wi-Fi. So we have public Wi-Fi, and there's no issue with that. But in an office, for example, this could lead to a person, a visitor, an outsider, going onto our network and making use of it. So how can we make that a little bit more safe in terms of the passwords? We've all got written down on Post-it notes or just on a blackboard or so on. So what we're going to do is to use a turning code and to use that turning code with a QR with information. We're going to have a little bit of a break here now so that people who are still programming can continue. Somebody's asking about what SL we have used. It's the item from Mac, and we used ZCell. We added that on because they're easier to use. As you can see, it's self-completed and it's got memory and it's quite good to use. No more questions? No. So here you have the link again for the repository. So let's have a look at this example of the codes, access codes. Let's have a look at the simple example. There are some things that we would need to correct if we actually wanted to use this or put it into use, but it's just an example. We're going to use a marker just like in the previous example because it's valid for both. And it's going to have a small QR with our access code. So that QR stores our code, and any application that can read QR codes can read that code. So we'd need to encrypt that code and to make it only possible to decrypt that from using our application. In the corporate world, this would be using an application that would have some special access codes in order to decipher that information using the app. In the second example, we use encoding, and we wanted to be incremental. we'll put in more and more concepts such as images and changing content. Another interesting thing is that when we use an app for this QR code, we can change that key. We could give it some different credentials for the Wi-Fi network for somebody who's a guest compared with somebody who's an employee. So if we take a look at the structure of the code, it's very similar to the one we had before. We have the scripts a frame. We will join in our own JavaScripts. We'll have a camera and a QR code and what we're going to draw. And this is what we're going to add on. In this case, the top part will be exactly the same. What we're going to change is this second line in the bottom part, and we're going to add our QR library. This allows us to read the QR. This is a library that is available in GitHub. I'm going to turn the camera off for just a second. There's another question that has come up in the meantime. So, are there any recommendation for the video controller for executing? I'm using Atom, but you could Sublime or any other. I prefer these IDs that are less closed than Eclipse or some of the other well-known ones. But there are, on the whole, no problems. But Git in GitHub, I don't really know how it works in Windows. I think you can use it from the ID directly, but if not, you'd need an external program, but I can't tell you much more about that. So let's go to the second concept test, which is the Wi-Fi one. So let's go to the second exercise. We have our libraries with the JavaScript in order to manage the QR codes. Here I have the marker, if you would like to use that. And there will be a number of pictures above all the top part and all the aesthetic part that are used in this field. So let's go to the exercise. Open up the index, which is what we're interested in. And the first step, as we said, we want to be able to read QR codes. So the marker is not a QR. Let's distinguish between one thing and another. We've got a marker here. What we have here, what I'm showing with the mouse, is the marker. This is what recognizes the library to put the position in the augmented reality. On the other side, this is a QR code that's storing information. They're not the same thing, but we could use the QR code as a marker if we wanted to. So let's continue now. So let's go to the index. We're adding our library to read QR. So, as in the previous case, we have the code that we need. Let's go to the solution. I forgot to add one little piece on here, just this little bit here. We'll take our script and we paste it here. This was saying we're going to use this script in this location, and it's in the lib file and this file that you can see down here. So we have a library that can now read the QRs. So we want to be able to tell it how to use our QRs. So we've included that in this information here. and that is going to use the camera on our laptop and create a reading loop to locate the QR codes. If it finds one, what it will do is it will send the information to this library that we've created for that QR code. And in this case, the information is a password, and it will show us on the screen, and we'll see that in a moment. So let's execute this library first of all. So now what we have in our project is what you can see here. We have an augmented reality application, so the code is very similar to the previous case, and we've added a library to interpret the information from the QR codes and a small script that we've done to use that library and send us the information from that QR code so that we can use it and show it to the user. So we're not going to use a cube in this particular case. Now we're going to use an image in this case. We're going to show the user a poster, maybe on a wall, with the access code with the password on it. So on one of the slides, we'll show one of the elements that we have. And this allows us to use the application to show this multimedia content, which can be images or videos. So we have an example of these kind of elements. So when we've been creating these elements, what we have is an asset. We say that we want it to be an image. We've given this ID to the image so that we can locate it. And it will be in this static file, and it will be called password panel PNG. So this is the Wi-Fi poster that we can show people using the application, using this augmented reality. So this is the same as before. So we need a marker of a high-row type. So rather than showing the cube, what we're going to say to our app is that it's an asset. It's the image that we created beforehand. Okay, we take it from here and we place it in this position. This is an element of the library, and we need to indicate that it should show us with this kind of rotation, so that when we focus on it with our mobile device or similar, so that it was up the right way, not back to front, and we scale it from 1:1. That is, it will be the same size as the marker. And if you see here, we have the source of the content. We have this ID here, the asset. So now if we execute this, let's see what happens. So now we have our project. We're going to do the same thing we did before. We execute this local server on our computer. Let's go to our navigator. And we're going to 8080. So we have a similar presentation to beforehand. If you have any questions, use the hashtag, please.
Entonces le vamos a enseñar este código.
And we're going to show this code. I'm going to see if my mobile will work for me.
Ahora no quiere.
No, it doesn't want to work.
Vale, vamos a ver qué está fallando.
Let's just see what's going wrong here. We've got our asset here.
Tenemos nuestra imagen.
And we've got our image.
Y probablemente lo que esté pasando es que tenemos aquí un script.
And we've probably got a script here that needs something else, and we need to add that in.
Entonces, nosotros le tenemos que mostrar a nuestro usuario
we need to show the password to our user. If it's able to decipher that QR code, we need to be able to show that. So how do we do that? We're talking about augmented reality. How do we show a text? So within this library, we've got the option of how to do that. So we need an entity here. The ID for this entity will be password, the same rotation as the image, and we'll position it inside our image so it's in the place that we want it to be. So they don't just have the text on one side and on the other side of the room we've got the marker. So let's scale it to make it a little bit bigger than the size of the QR. And we'll give it this initial value. It's password not found. I'll show you the JavaScript in a moment. Initially, it will search for this entity to add the content. Let's see if it wants to do it now.
Ahora sí me lo está enseñando.
Yeah, now it is showing it, as you can see. So now, instead of showing a cube, what it is going to do is show this Wi-Fi panel. It looks a bit weird now because we are using it with our computer. The thing is, the moment we publish this on the internet, we're not going to use our computers or our laptop's camera, but our phone's camera. But just, you know, for simplicity, because it's easier to do it for these demonstrations, we're doing it from the laptop. So what we've seen so far is that we didn't have text yet. If we show the QR now, as you can see, we didn't see any text. And now let's see how the script works. So we go to the QR reader, which is a code that we did ourselves to tell the QR library what to do with this QR. And what it is going to do is find the password element, add an attribute to it, which is text, and give it a value, which in this case is the data that we have within our QR code. So we've already erased this from Netlify. And now it's a bit easier because all we have to do is input this here. We have another question, although it's not about AR, but Koke is asking whether which MacBook you use for programming and whether you can use it for graphic design as well. I'm using a MacBook Pro. I use it with any Linux distributor. I can use Linux or I can use this MacBook. It does work for programming. It works for graphic design as well, although I usually complement it with a tablet. Now, we back to this. As you can see, we now see the image, and what I'm trying to do is for it to read this small QR code which we have here behind, but it doesn't really want to work. Let's see again. because we have obviously uploaded with something that is not right. It's the demo effect, as you know, but this is the kind of thing that happens in a workshop, isn't it? And we can see the camera here. Well, just in case, because I always have this, just in case I have input something wrong during the effect. So we have this lifted here, because we're going to have a different image, see? Because this is an older version. So basically what it says here is that password has not been found. And as you can see, it has read our QR code, and we have our password, which is my password key in this case, as you can see. I'm just giving access to the camera now, and see, it's not detecting the password not found, and now when you come closer, then you do get our Wi-Fi password. Sometimes light reflections in the screen prevent the camera from detecting the QR. So this is our second concept test, and as we have seen, we've got the assets here as we have added them, and you have the examples. You can see on the slide we have the older image. So up to now, what we've been doing is an incremental development of our code. We started doing only a cube, adding a red cube which turns. On that code, we have decided to use it for cybersecurity, and so we've got rid of the cube, and we have added a Wi-Fi panel image, and we have added QR code to our marker, and we have given the possibility of reading the QR information. So in this way, whoever comes to our office will not know the password so clearly, and they will have to use an application in order to obtain that code. So it won't be just anyone who looks into our office from the window. This is just an example, but we think that it could actually be used for many sorts of information, and it's something that's very interesting when it comes to protecting passwords or the information of our physical environment. Now, if we go just another step further, we can think that this could obviously be used for other things. How about using it for verifying documents, for example? Could we take this digital world to reality so that we can show users more information about these documents or certain documents that they have printed on paper? So with a marker or with a QR code, we're going to print them together with contracts, so for example an exam, and we're going to be able to verify that that contract or that document has not been modified, for example, or who that document has been delivered to, for example. And further than that, we will be able to see what level of sensitivity the information contained in it has. So in order to do this, we start complicating things a little bit more. You have the repository, you know, the hashtag, CyberCamp Mari Morena, if you have questions. And now we're going to test 2. We will be able to see metadata with this. We will be able to trace this document and know who this document has been delivered to, whether this is confidential, and if it appears published on the internet, for example, or on social networks, we will be able to locate who has filtered it, where it comes from. And we will also be able to see whether this document is confidential, reserved, or whether it is public information. And in order to do this, we are going to start encrypting information with for this QR code, and it will only be us who are able to decipher it. So I'm going to show you the structure again so you can see that even for this, our AR application doesn't really change. What changes is what's behind the scenes, but showing the information is exactly as easy as it was before. So in order to do it, we're going to use the QR reading library, and on top of that, we're going to use this other library that we're going to bring from a CDN, which is for cryptography. So on the one hand, we have to encrypt, which we're going to do through Python, and then we have to encrypt, which we're going to do through JavaScript. And this is more complicated because some libraries thought so they use the same library to encrypt and decipher, but when you actually have to use different encryption or cipher in different environments, you have to know exactly how it works, and so it's going to be a bit more difficult, but I will show you later how we've done it, so you see how it's done. So we have a scene, we have camera, a marker, and then we have the information that we want to show. And here we're going to add a little bit more code in our body. We have the scene. We're going to have different assets that will model the 3 states our application will have, which will be valid document, not valid document, or no QR found for the information. Be careful. We're also going to use a hero marker, which is a combination in this case of 2 markers. So we're going to combine this double marker because we are using a lot of information, because our QR has grown and it's not so easy to put it in that hero marker, so we have to have it outside. In this library we cannot do it, but in other libraries you could actually use this QR as a marker directly, but because this is the simpler one to use on web, then we've decided to find a balance between what it offered us and what it didn't. So we have a marker, as we were saying, it will have a combined image, and then we'll have the camera. Now, we're going to see how this QR code is created. We're going to take a PDF, a digital document from our computer, and what we will do is we will take the files binary, the metadata, and we're going to do an HMAC with this metadata so that we are sure that it cannot be modified afterwards. Then we're going to take a list of the metadata. We're not going to show it in this concept test, but you could do it. You could even include the title of the document, when it was created or modified. We're going to have the confidentiality level, whether it is private or public or extremely confidential. We're going to say who the owner of the document is, the file, which in this case will be the person it is delivered to. And we're also going to use either the whole document or URL to the digital document in a server, so that we can then check the 2 documents against each other and make sure that the content has not changed to what we have stored. So what we're going to do is, on the one side, creating the QR on a Python script, and on the other hand, we're going to decipher the information on JavaScript. So, as I was saying, we have the QR on the one hand, and then this other part, which is any browser where we decipher it. This is what it's going to look like. So we go back to the exercise, and the first thing that we're going to do is to add this new library that we have to import, and that is going to bring the crypto functions. So we go back to the exercise number 2. So, because we are importing this from a CDN, we're going to need the internet, but we could always previously have downloaded the library and then just add it to our file. So on this QR reading script is where we've made the most changes, and we're going to have a look at how we are encrypting this. So we go to QR reader, and as you can see, the code is very similar to the one we had before, but as we get here, we start seeing different functions that will allow us to work with the information for the QR. So this is where we're looking at the camera and reading constantly the information it brings until we find our QR. And the moment the QR is found, then the function will stop. Then we'll also have the deciphering function. This is a conceptual test, so we're not storing anything on the server. Or rather we are storing it now, but it shouldn't be done in this way. We should do it in a safer way. But because we want this to be easier, and for the purposes of this workshop, we're going to do it like this. So we're going to name our library, which is this one, and then we're going to decipher all the information that this QR library has given us. So we're going to take this library. We know that we have a specific kind of cipher and that it's in mode CFB. And so just finding the library through here, it will give us a string which will contain all the information. Now we're going to use this string here, and what we're going to do is when the QR code is read, we're going to decipher it with this option, which I have mentioned briefly earlier, and this data that it has decrypted, we're going to add to the image that we're showing. So at the beginning, we're going to have an image saying we don't know the state, or a state unknown, because we cannot find a QR. But if we eventually find the QR and our application can decrypt it, that means that the deciphering is adequate, so the person had the keys in order to do it, then it will show the information contained in the QR. So what we're going to do is first see whether this is valid or not, then the owner, and then the level of sensitivity. And then if it's not valid, then we will have a different image which tells the user that the code is not valid, and to be careful because the code is not valid. So this is more or less the code script, and this is what we've just imported. So we, as we were saying, import the ciphering library to use it in a script, and then we've looked into what has changed with respect to the earlier version. So we go back to our scene, to our content, and as I was saying, we don't have just one image now, we will have different images which model all the state of our applications. So we're going to take those assets and we're going to add them. I'm going to show them to you now. They're on the statics file. We have this one that shows the document is correct, and we will have the owner on the left and the sensitivity level on the right. We have this one which will basically say QR is not valid, be careful, and then we finally have the unknown version, and we directly just write it on the image, which is basically saying we have not been able to read the QR, so we don't even know sensitivity, and we have it in red because we're not able to verify it. And this will be the initial state. So we've added our images here. These are the identifiers to be able to use them afterwards, and this is the path to the statics file where they are stored. So now we've done this, we keep using our hero marker, and we're going to add, in this case, not only the image, the initial image that we've set, but also our text, which is the owner and the sensitivity level. Right. So we've added them, just as we did earlier. We have an entity. One is owner, the other one is level of encryption. Then we have the camera, position of the text with respect to the marker, as we differentiated before. The scale, i.e. the size, it's going to have with respect to the marker, the value, which initially will be 0, and then the color of the text in this case. And so we have the first part, and let's test it now. I'm going to close the other server. And so let's go back to the exercise. So we've got the contents here. Structure is what we're saying. We've got the source, our library, the statics, the index. We lift our local server with Python. And let's see. Here we are. This is our local server. And as we were saying before, we have a QR code here together with the marker. We're going to show it to the camera, and as you can see, it hasn't read the QR code yet because it's too far away from the camera. And if we bring it closer and my phone decides to work for me, see if maybe I've forgotten to import the library. Could be. Let me check.
Now we have it. Now it's reading properly. It's showing us the panel. And it's not showing the text. Sometimes it doesn't. It's reading it quickly now. It's not showing the text right now. That's what happened to us previously. It's showing that everything is correct. It's taken the information from the QR and it's decrypted it. It's decrypted this information and it's changing the image and saying that it's okay. Let's see why there's an error. These are the development elements of the server. This is the hash for the content, and this hash is for the metadata, and this is the owner. In this case, we've put Lala. And the sensitivity, this is a public document. And once we've got this information using the JavaScript, which is what we're showing here, so let's take a look at it from the exercise. And we have it here. Let's show that. And here you can see, on the one hand, the owner and also the level of sensitivity. So let's see an occasion when it's unable to encrypt. So we have just a plain text. It's not able to decrypt that because it hasn't been encrypted. It will say that it is incorrect. We'll put that a little bit closer so that it can read properly. So now you can see this QR is not valid. It's not verifying the information in the document, so be careful. We're unable to decipher it. So somebody maybe has modified this QR code or has not encrypted it using our codes. So this would be the third POC. And the case would be how we could print this QR. How do we take that digital document, insert it, and then print it? So let me show you the Python script. It's not in the repository. I'll put it in later on. I think it was this one. Let me just have a look. It's just here. We have questions, even though it's not directly related to this. People are asking where your shirt is from. It's very nice. I don't know where it's from. People ask a lot of things about computing, but nobody asks how we are. They're asking how we are. It's the first day of CyberCamp. We've got the hackathon later on, so we're just starting, but thank you for asking. It's nice to be remembered. Let me show you the Python code. We're going to take a document. And we're taking this document and a certificate. To encrypt something, we need the certificate or document. If not, it will generate it itself in this particular case. We're going to take the metadata document. And we're going to open up that document, that PDF, read its metadata, and encode it in base 64. After this, we'll take the content from the document and do the same thing, do an HMAC, take a certificate that's been generated, and add the ownership, add the sensibility level, we will take the information and cipher it, and using this function, which is encrypt. We're using a Python library here. In this case, it's AES. And we're going to use CFB from before, which is a size of 128. So once we have this ciphered code, we're going to get a library and create a QR code using that. We create an image and the encrypted code. We're going to call it CyberQR. And I'll show you how we would do this. So let's go to the terminal. So it's the CyberCamp workshop. And here we have it. So in order to execute this, I'm going to show you the documents that we have. We have a PDF in order to create this QR. And we will say that this is the document in this directory, and we're going to put it in verbose to show the information. The owner, instead of it will be another one. and the password. So these are the steps we took previously. Since we haven't given it a certificate, it made its own. And we have the hashes that taken from the information, and this is the metadata. It's the PDF call for papers for CyberCamp. Author is INCIBE, and all of this information is being stored, and we will be able to show that in the app that we have created. It says that there is an owner and the sensibility level, and it will give us the encrypted information. This is the encrypted text that we have included. Let me show you the image, which is just over here. It's this one. We'd need that gyro code that we mentioned before. If we show this to our app, rather than the la 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 as the owner will be dueño, the owner. So with this Python code, we've done this part of the computer, and then afterwards we'll use the mobile to decrypt this and give the user the information he or she needs about that document and the metadata and where that original document is. So once we've finished this part, if you want to do these exercises, they will all be available in this repository. It's CyberCamp 2019-security with AR workshop. So in the details of each project, you have the information of the code. You will also have it in a PDF at the end, so that you have that available, and you have the information of how we've done that. And of course, if you have any questions, you can still use their hashtag CyberCamp Maria Morena. So let's conclude, and Miguel will talk about future ideas, because we have given some examples, but we believe that many more things can be done with this. Augmented reality is not only for use in video games. We can use it in other different fields as well, such as in security, as we've been talking about up until now. The sensibility level of documents is very interesting, and this is increasing now. And as we use the goggles in augmented reality more and more, we'll be able to use that and use it with regards to documents they have around the office, and whether or not you can use them officially or not. We have the issue that LPs usually use codes, and we go to the physical plane and use these markers, and whether or not these documents can be used or not, and it's not so clear. Documents tend to have a very high confidentiality level, but there are other uses that you can put to with this hardware with regards to augmented reality. There's another example, and it's a case of authentication. Anything to do with automation, and this is very interesting in the field of augmented reality, and without the need to be physically in a given place. These are options that we could propose, or in the first case, in terms of vandalism, how you could propose systems that are already set up so that you can protect so that nothing can be put on top of different materials. We're unable to go this far, but it would be very interesting to see what solutions you might propose for this. And we'll see that it will not only be used in video games. And in physical level, we'll stop using the usual post-it notes and have other different options through augmented reality. This is a very well-known case of how far augmented reality can go. What about if augmented reality actually reaches physical reality? It's about how far we can go.
Y además puedes quedarte con los puntos de fidelización. Eres una multiafortunada. Tienes que tocar en la aplicación. ¿Te sientes nada? Gracias. Chao.
Here we can see that the case of privacy, somebody can see who you're talking with when you're making a call, and so on. Then the issue of spam is also a very clear one. So in advertising comes to this point, they'll have information on about where you are, and you'll just simply be receiving information on different products. You may not believe it, but Japan is not like this. But obviously, technology is very part of life there. The screens are there, but there aren't tracks to walk along like that in actual fact. I think it's pretty clear, and we can see that the problems are specifically in privacy. If people can see what you're doing and the suggestions that you will be receiving, and depending on how you navigate, you'll be received different information from what somebody else will be receiving. So where is this going towards? What are the trends? So it's regarding capturing you, and you might be part of a video game, and it's not a profile that you have set up. In the area of tourism, it's very interesting because you won't need to imagine how things were before. You can directly follow different routes using these different guides. This is quite an interesting field, and I believe that it's already being used in Barcelona. And tourism and augmented reality is an interesting point. In education, we saw the examples about UNICEF previously, taking technology to different places where it's difficult to use. Augmented reality can be used in different schools or in medicine. How we can see illnesses or pain, which would be otherwise very difficult if we didn't have this technology. But it's still not clear how it will be used in security in order to make environments safe. We've tried to see how this might be used, but I think we're very much in the early stages now. Now, if you have any questions, we're here available to answer them for you. Thank you very much. I don't have a question. I've tried to follow everything that you were doing from the start, and there was a point when it was really, really fast. I know you understand it, but some of us to follow it was a little bit difficult. It was just to say, well done, it was excellent, but actually you were going really, really fast through the screens, and I found it hard to keep up. It's difficult in 2 hours to condense everything into such a short time, and that's why we put everything in the repository. It was just a little bit too quick for me. But in any case, it was excellent. If you'd like to do this at home, you can go through the same process. Yeah, it was moving along really, really fast, and the slides were moving along, and I found it hard to keep up. It was very, very interesting, however. Yeah, hopefully we'll choose something else. Thank you very much.
Pues muchísimas gracias.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much indeed.